Without further ado, let's give it up for Kris Orlowski.
You won't see me in the big house. You won't see me when the train leaves town. Hide in here, fall and pray. The sound and great uncertainty and doubt. Almost feels like I'm wasted. Drinking water while I try, keep changing routes. Almost feels like I'm wasted. Paralyzed by my own dreams. Where I'm running, but my time is running out. Are we gonna start a family? Am I falling apart? Am I making a mess? Trying to play this part. Is this the way I am? Am I falling apart? Am I making a mess? Everything that's right, just the opposite. Getting tired of the chasing. Going harder just to make it for a while. But I'm wired to replace things. Almost feels like I'm wasted. Getting water while the tide keeps changing routes. Almost feels like I'm wasted. Am I falling apart? Am I making a mess? Trying to play this part. Is this the way I am? Am I falling apart? Am I taking a stand? Everything that's right, just the opposite. Ooh. Falling apart, 'cause I'm taking this chance, trying to change their hearts. Is this the way I am? Oh, and steady as you are, steady as you plan. You're even from the start. It's better than I'd planned.
So it just seemed weird to talk about my career as a musician without starting out as, with the song. And it also is a way for me to try to add credibility instead of just talking about like, hey, my career, and then like, well, what do you do? Like, what are you really about? And I think that song is also a really good reflection of the fact that being a musician or being in the music industry is really hard. Sometimes it feels like you're falling apart. It's a very seasonal, it's a seasonal career in some ways because it's so up and down. Today, I guess I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. I've been doing this 12 years. I'm from Bellingham, so I'm a Washington local. I've had songs in TV shows, and I've toured the country. And a lot of that stuff's happened to me more recently because I've been playing music for so long and putting in the time. But you guys want to know a little bit more about how I got here. I think it's good to start by talking more about the fact that there isn't really just one way to do it. There's a lot of different paths to being in the world of music. When I first started out, I saw myself as more of a performer, and I still see myself as that, but I also see myself more as a songwriter now and a recording artist after doing this for a long time. But I've also done a lot of different stuff in the industry. I remember when Kriss gave a keynote up at Bellingham for one of the music conferences up there, he talked about how you do all of these different things in the industry to see kind of what you like, what resonates, and that's kind of how you figure out what you want to do. And then Kriss went on to book Bumbershoot for 15 years or something like that. So I did a lot of research early on in my career, and how to book shows, how to write your bio, how to build a website. There's a very strong DIY ethic in Seattle, and I think I was very drawn to that. You do it yourself, freelancer vibe, which I think a lot of you here are probably in the same boat. It's it takes a lot of passion. You got to be really driven to do it yourself, but nobody's going to do it and work harder for you than you are for yourself. But reading those books, I also learned one piece of advice that stayed with me for a really long time, and that is, don't quit your job until you have to. And I think that's an important piece of information to never leave out whenever I talk about a music career, because while some people can actually do really well at just going straight into music, maybe it's after high school or after college or from a very young age, I found music a little bit later in my life, and so for me, having a stable job so that I could organically build my career, get those basic building blocks, finding the right band, finding local shows, playing local shows, building an organic fan base, being able to pay for recording studio time, which is not cheap, but is a lot cheaper than it used to be because we're in the digital age now, of course. And then also not having to take every gig. Long story short, for me, it was really important to have a job for a while to pay for things. And because of that, I own my own records now instead of somebody else owning them. I know one other valuable point about not quitting your day job is that since you have money to spend on food and shelter, you can actually volunteer your time. And I'll tell you, I know at One Reel, as an example, when you volunteer your time there, you make a lot of connections, you learn a lot, and you wouldn't have that kind of access otherwise. I think for me, I worked at Sound Magazine as a volunteer. On Craigslist, I found this ad that said, "Hey, you want to go to shows for free and pass out magazines?" I was like, "Yes, that sounds awesome." So I got to meet tons of venue owners. I got to meet tons of bands. I got an education in that live show experience and how to perform on stage. I've seen hundreds of shows because I was able to work for free. So I think there's a value in being able to volunteer and work for free and be involved in the community. Oh man, I could talk about this slide forever. So my first 10 years as a musician was really about kind of finding what made me, how I stood out. There's the classic, perfecting your craft, 10,000 hours, which is, the most important thing you can do. And like I said earlier, learning how to write a bio and how to, be a publicist and be a designer and be all of the things that you need to be in order to push your brand out the right way. But for me, I think the most important parts were, one, learning that I can only write what I know and what I feel. I think as a listener now, I get that more than I used to, because when you're listening to a song, you know right away if the person singing it feels it. It becomes really obvious really quickly. And if they don't feel it, you don't feel it. So learning, being genuine and authentic just became very important to me the more I played. And also, in terms of identity and what resonated with me, being a part of the community here in Seattle has been really important to me. There was a point in time where there was this open mic that happened called at Connor Byrne, and there was so many people that would go to that, both like fans and artists and songwriters and stuff. And I was able to develop so many friendships and was able to support so many other artists, and they were able to support me. And I developed so many friends that still come to my shows now that are in the crowd today as well. And community has become really important to me, and something that I think is very valuable, whether you're in music or film or a freelancer. It's good to have people around you that support you, that inspire you, and that are more talented than you usually. So I could go on and on about this, but one thing I'll just talk. I love the idea of collaboration too. That was another big part of my identity, was being able to collaborate with people, and later that turned into co-writing, which is a big part of my career now. But at one point in my building community phase of life, which is still going on, but was like a lot more present about 5 years ago. I had about 7 interns that I was working with for my band. 5 of them were in Seattle, 1 was in LA, and 1 was in Arizona. And one of my interns was she was an all-star. She's like, hey, I'm gonna send your music to this music supervision company. And unsolicited, they listened to the record and ended up putting my song on Grey's Anatomy. It was insane. And so I ended up becoming really good friends with the music supervisor, and she's become one of my hugest advocates. And if it wasn't for the support of my interns and a brilliant idea by my intern to just send something to somebody, I wouldn't have landed my publishing deal in 2013, and which has led to a lot of licensing dollars and more exposure, which has also led to more national tours. And in 2015, because there was enough demand, and because there was basically, I can't live 2 lives. I can't have a day job and do music. That was when I knew, okay, I can quit now, and not be as poor as a little while ago. So that gets me to my first full year of music, just music. Maybe a couple Jack Daniel's tastings where I would give people alcohol, or maybe like help somebody with some computer stuff and get a couple bucks. But I kind of think of my career in 7 different buckets: as a performer, recording artist, teacher, songwriter, business owner, and then these other 2 buckets, which is kind of relationships, socializing, going out, events, and then the ominous other, which I'll get to more later. My first year, I wrote 40 songs from February of 2015 to February of 2016, and a lot of those were co-writes. And co-writing is when usually a publisher or a manager will connect you with 2 songwriters together, and they'll write a song for licensing or for one of the artist's albums, or to pitch to like a big artist like a Justin Bieber or John Mayer or somebody. I don't know why I chose those guys. Yeah, I know, totally. What was I thinking? Is this on video? Shoot. So anyway, I wrote 40 songs, and some of those were for me and for my album, and I didn't write with anybody else, and others were co-writes. And like one example would be a song I wrote with a guy named Johnny Ashby a month and a half ago in LA on my last writing trip. And we wrote for this comic book turned TV show called Archie that they're working on. I don't know if we got it yet. We're still kind of figuring it out. Sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes a year to figure out if you got the song. But how that co-write worked is we got in a room, we wrote a song called Flowers in July. Nobody take that now. That's on camera, so nobody can take that title. Nor does anybody want to, it sounds like. And then he went and actually recorded it with a producer, and our publishing company said, okay, if it doesn't get picked up here, we'll pitch it for other stuff. So that's co-writing in a nutshell. So 40 songs in the first year, a lot of time between LA and Nashville, and about 30% of my time between performing and songwriting was spent on the road. And I did about 68 shows last year, and they were a mix of, bumper shoot to intimate house shows, solo, to A residency I did here locally. I had an idea, and I think I've seen other artists do this where they create their own opportunities, and I think it's brilliant when you can come up with an idea that'll help sustain your career. Hasn't happened to me very often, so that's why I'm talking about it for me. But I had this idea. I want to play shows in Petra's house at the top of the Smith Tower every month. It'd be a great way for me to create something that's so memorable and so intimate, breaks down all the walls, all the barriers of a live show experience, like the being on stage or the amplification. Like you're just in a room with a guitar with string quartet or whatever it is. And we've done one every month for the last 6 months, and it's part of the reason I've been able to be a full-time musician so long. So I think it's important. Just basically the reason I brought that up is because I think everybody in here has great ideas, and sometimes you just need to go with them because it can turn into something that can kind of change your life a little bit. Recording is another part of my career this past year. I wrote a song. Grey's Anatomy reached out and they said, "Hey, we're reaching out to a bunch of songwriters. We want them to do to cover one of these songs." And my girlfriend's a huge Beyonce fan, so I chose "Halo" by Beyonce, and I got into a studio with the producer and we recorded it, and then he mixed it, and I had somebody master it, and then we sent it off. And it's pretty typical for that to happen with just one person who's actually recording and producing themselves, but I don't have that skill set, so I've had to go to somebody else to do that. But if you find the right people, I think a songwriting, producing, or if you're a videographer and you have like a creative guy or gal, those partnerships can be really valuable. And also, there's two different people kind of thinking about ways to create. So, and then another segment or bucket that I guess where I spent my last year was as a business owner. And I got to tell you, being a business owner is tough. Like, you spend a lot of time on the business. I didn't realize how much time I would be spending. And it's also tough because you kind of have to have both a right and a left brain, thinking about how you want to tell your story, but also pitching it to people in press or doing your own counting. And I did over half of my business was in licensing. A third of it was in live shows. I think that's both merch and the performances. And then the rest was, a very small percentage was sales, digital sales, royalty, and teaching. But that's a lot of different types of things, and it takes a lot of organization to kind of, for me to be able to kind of jump between these different worlds and juggle it. And so my career has grown, I've really had to bring on other people to help me. They say it takes a village. It absolutely takes a village, and this is my village. I kind of wanted to illustrate the people on my team because I think it's important not only to talk about all the different types of things that are done behind the scenes, but also where everybody's from. Seattle's got a lot of great creative people, but our supporting resources are a little bit more limited up here. My manager's Peter's out of LA. He's often working from that boat. My publisher is Chop Shop, which is a music supervision company and a publishing company, Songs, so it's a little bit of a dual role. They're out of LA and New York. Sean, my distributor, who I met through my lawyer, is out of Nashville, and he's awesome. I mean, he's amazing. And my lawyer, John, is the guitar player from the Lemonheads, which is insane. So he could never do any work for me again, and I'd still be like a huge fan. Like, you're so awesome. Thank you for being my lawyer. And then my radio guy, Jesse, he's new to the team. He worked the last record. And then Ever is a local Seattle publicist who's awesome. Has done stuff with Death Cab and Fanagram and stuff. And then Robin's the newest member of the team. She does accounting. But I just illustrate that to show you that there's a deep pool of people that are experts in LA and Nashville and New York, but there's not quite as many people. There are brilliant people up here doing it, but there's not as big a pool. So sometimes you kind of have to go outside Seattle to find resources. Sometimes. So the ominous other category of how I spent my first year as a full-time musician is basically As I think Kat Sassy Black pointed out earlier, she said, because I was telling her how stressed out I am just with trying to juggle too much right now, and she said, you need to like schedule breaks. And I was like, actually, I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit. I like the way she said it better than I would have said it. But if you spend too much time recording, performing, and writing, that's all you have to express. And basically, if I'm spending so much time in those 5 buckets of doing music and running a business, I don't really have any experiences to pull from after a while. It's all just, another song. I think John and Michael were joking about this. Another song about being on the road, which I don't think we need any more of those songs. So there's this exercise that I've been telling people about that I've used. It seems pretty tried and true, called morning pages. And the idea is that inner voice that you're hearing all the time that's telling you to put on clothes or go to work or stop looking weird when you're looking in the mirror at yourself or something, whatever it is, that sensor that guides your creativity. And a lot of times it can really inhibit your creativity as well. It'll tell you, no, you're stupid. No, you can't do that. And what morning pages does, I'll tell you how it works in a sec, is it kind of helps get rid of that sensor so that on command you can create, you can write, you can do what it is you want to do. And this isn't just for musicians, this is for everybody. I've seen it work for actors and for accountants even, which is bizarre, I know. But basically what you do is every morning when you get up, and it's a pain in the butt at first, but you write stream of conscious for 3 pages. Don't stop, just, I don't want to write, I hate this exercise. Oh my gosh, this dream I had last night, and then all of a sudden you're off, But it's all about just writing stream of conscious, and it helps you get rid of that censor that's telling you to stop, telling you no. So that is how I spent my first year in music. I thought I'd give you 5 takeaways to kind of finish things out here. As I said earlier, write what you know, write what you feel and what you've experienced. It's a lot more genuine and it'll resonate a lot more. People make all the difference. Surround yourself with people that inspire and support you. Stay involved in your community because you'll get interrupted in the middle of your presentation, and and artists should expect to work 6 days a week. And that's, when I say artists, I mean freelancers. I mean anybody who's in the hustle. If this is your passion, if this is what you want to do, you should treat it like a startup, where you're working all the time, at least for a while, because any expectation less than that, you're not going to get what you want, I don't think. So don't quit your day job if you don't have to. Thanks.